This is the ParentNormal Comedy Podcast, the show that helps imperfect parents laugh when they want to cry.
Play it, DJ.
Welcome to the ParentNormal Comedy Podcast. I'm Chris Cate, and in this first ever episode of the show, I'll ask Michele Lepe, who you probably know as Nina from the Goodnight Show on Sprout, if she is able to put her own kids to sleep as calmly as she puts America's kids to sleep each night on TV. We'll learn how carrots became part of her kids' bedtime routine, and find out what happened when she tried to change her baby's first blowout diaper on her boss's desk. But before we get to my interview with Michele, let's check to see what's in the ParentNormal news on the subject of Goodnight and Badnight Times, which happens to be the theme of this inaugural episode.
ParentNormal news.
In Twin Falls, Idaho, rescuers are still trying to reach a mother who pulled a hamstring while crawling out of her toddler's bed. The pulled muscle is believed to be a result of the mother's slow-motion technique, her lack of stretching, and the unusually long reach of her leg to crawl over her toddler. A rescue team has been monitoring the mother for hours, but she has waved off every attempt they've made to enter her toddler's room. She whispers that she would rather sleep on the floor in pain than risk having anyone wake up her toddler. And in Williston, North Dakota, the sleep protests of an 18-month-old baby have extended into their 18th month. The protests, which last long into the night every night, have ranged from boycotts and hunger strikes to sit-ins and protest marches. The baby has even resorted to civil disobedience, anarchy, graffiti, and occasional nudity. The only protest technique the baby hasn't utilized is the silent protest. The baby's father says he wishes his baby's demands weren't so inconsistent and impossible to meet, but he's at least pleased to know his baby isn't a quitter. Meanwhile, in Grayfield, Oklahoma, a bipartisan group of parents is leading an effort to change the name of their city from Grayfield to Sleep. The parents claim it's a simple solution to the city's tourism shortage, saying, quote, "Who wouldn't want to go to sleep? The marketing's already done. I would do anything to go to sleep. Anything." A poll of parents in neighboring cities suggests they would be more likely to visit Grayfield if it was renamed Sleep. When asked why, the most common answer was, because visiting Sleep may be our only option to go to sleep anytime soon. And finally, a new study finds that the average person spends 1/3 of their life asleep. That's nothing new, but a closer look at the study reveals that the average parent spends all 3/3 of their parenting life awake, primarily because they're trying to put everyone but themselves to sleep. The sleep study was bound in book form and provided to parents to help them sleep, but no matter how many times they try to read the long and boring book, they still can't get to sleep because their kids try to take the book from them, turn it upside down, and question its lack of princesses and dragons instead of going to bed like they're supposed to be doing. And those are the ParentNormal News headlines. Now, in addition to providing you the latest parenting news, I want to make sure this show is answering your frequently asked questions about parenting as well. The questions I'll be answering this week are all about Goodnight and Badnight Times. Since one of my favorite pastimes used to be sleeping, and since I spend most of my current time trying to put kids to sleep, it's a topic I could teach in my sleep, if I could ever get to sleep. So let's get started and open up the
ParentNormal Mailbag.
The first question comes from Melissa Walters in Juneau, Alaska. She asks, on a good night, when my toddler falls asleep on my shoulder right at his bedtime, what is the best way to celebrate? Well, Melissa, congratulations on getting your toddler to bed right at bedtime. It's such a special moment when a toddler falls to sleep on your shoulder, because it means they've probably been awake for at least 36 hours for that to happen. So I'm assuming for your toddler to go to sleep on your shoulder right at bedtime, that means they were up all night the previous night and skipped the previous day's nap. So you must be really ready to celebrate. The best way to celebrate in this case is to lay your toddler gently down in bed, tiptoe out of their room in your usual manner, walk outside at least 50 yards from your toddler's window, and dance under the stars like you're on Dancing with the Stars. Then run back inside because your toddler has probably wet the bed, because there is nothing ever easy when it comes to parenting. On a related note, if a toddler ever asks to sleep in one morning, don't celebrate too soon. There's a 100% chance that when they say sleeping in, they just mean they want to sleep in your bed. The second question is from Adam Farrelly in Crenshaw, Texas. He asks, do you have any recommendations for a good nightlight that my toddler will like? Thanks for that question, Adam. A toddler's idea of a good nightlight is something bright enough to light Yankee Stadium that also requires a parent to remain close by. And since you can't find anything like that at Walmart, I would just stick to something economical. It's pretty likely your toddler will break the nightlight anyway when they're trying to rip it out of the socket for no reason, except because you told them not to. The next question comes from Ashley Holmgren in Red Banks, Mississippi. She asks, sometimes when I hear my toddler get out of bed at night, I'm afraid there might be a burglar in the house. What should I do in that situation? Well, Ashley, if you hear footsteps at night, it usually is a burglar. A short, clumsy, unapologetic burglar stealing any chance you had of a good night's sleep. In that situation, tell them you know karate and to get back into bed. And tell them if they go back to sleep fast, you'll teach them some karate in the morning. Kids love karate, so that should be a good incentive for them. The fourth question this week comes from Jim Hallman in Perry, Pennsylvania, who writes, my toddler can't tell time, so she doesn't know what time her bedtime is. But I can tell time, and I don't even know what time her bedtime is because it's never the same. Am I alone? Jim, thanks for that question. You're not alone, and I'm not just saying that because I'm sure your toddler is wide awake and clinging to you while you're listening to this podcast. Every toddler has a bedtime, but you just never know what time it is until they finally fall asleep, wake up, and fall asleep again for the second, third, and fourth time. I wouldn't worry too much about having an exact bedtime every night. Just make sure your toddler is getting enough sleep so that they don't fall asleep in their cereal or get too grumpy to decide what spoon they want to eat it with. That's a tough enough task on a full night's sleep for them. Hope that helps. And finally, Megan Herbert in Kalamazoo, Michigan asks, can you please give me 10 reasons why life without sleep isn't as bad as it seems? I'm trying to stay motivated, but I'm too tired to see the positives right now. Megan, sleep is obviously better than no sleep. But it's not all bad to be awake every minute of every day. Consider these 10 reasons why life without sleep isn't so bad. Number 1, when you don't sleep, you don't have to worry about having bad dreams. 2, when you don't sleep, breakfast for dinner makes as much sense as eating breakfast in the morning. 3, when you don't ever sleep, daylight savings time can't throw you off your schedule, only your kids' schedules, which are really more imaginary anyway. Number 4, when you don't sleep, you never have to worry about sleeping so much that it makes you tired, which is the most illogical of ways to get sleepy and something I never want to hear about if this happens to you. Number 5, when you don't sleep, you don't need to run a marathon to know what it feels like to run a marathon. Number 6, when you don't sleep, nobody can complain that you snore, which you don't, because how could you? Number 7, when you don't sleep, you can't wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Number 8, when you don't sleep, you don't have to make up your bed, which gives you extra time to make up your kid's bed again and again. 9. When you don't sleep, you can keep counting sheep until you know exactly how many sheep there are. And the 10th reason why life without sleep isn't so bad, when you don't sleep, you can't get hypnotized and do something embarrassing like bark like a dog whenever you hear a bell. Alright, Megan, by the way that list ended, it's pretty obvious that the list of positives for sleepless nights isn't very deep. But I hope that list included enough to keep you motivated, because your kids are lucky to have you sacrificing your sleep for them. And that goes for everyone who submitted a question and for all of the parents listening. One great reason to be awake right now is that it's time for my interview with Michele Lepe. If you don't recognize her name, it's probably because you know her as Nina on The Goodnight Show, which airs on Sprout. She also voices Nina's mom on the new animated Sprout show Nina's World. It's a great new show your kids will probably tell you about, but until then, here's my interview with Michele Lepe.
ParentNormal interview.
First question I want to ask you about is the difference between Nina, your gentle and calm television persona on The Goodnight Show, versus Michele, the mom, when you're putting your own kids to bed. So basically, are you able to stay as calm as Nina when you put your kids to bed, or does the whole process from teeth brushing to reading stories, etc., give you high blood pressure like the rest of us?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say there's a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde element, but it's impossible to be as patient and as sweet and as tender as Nina is every single night. Because that's a really, it's sort of a magical wonderland when I'm doing the show for Sprout.
Right.
And there's not actual children in the studio. No, I have to say that I do search for that inner patient person, because nighttime routines can be tough. And that time of day, and I say this time and time again, it's really hard. I mean, everyone's tired, but, kids have a really hard time dealing with being tired and understanding that means, oh, if I just lay down and close my eyes, everything will be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Their minds are processing like, let's just keep going. And so, yeah, it's tough. But I do try to, channel Nina. It doesn't always work, but I try.
Now, you do some yoga on the show. Is that something you do with your own kids too?
Absolutely. Yes. And my kids love it. And I love that they love it. Yoga has been a part of my life for a long time. My husband and I practice at home and for years before we had kids. So it was kind of always a part of my life anyways, even if it was just sitting down and doing some stretches while watching TV. So I think that's made it easier for me to incorporate it into our daily lives with our kids, just because it's something that we've always done. Now, I don't sit down and do a full-on yoga routine, but just like a little stretch here and there. And I think that my kids really like that segment on the show.
Mm-hmm.
They love doing the little, I'm a little sprout now, just watch me grow. They love doing that. And so we talk a lot about taking a deep breath and just, when the anxiety gets really high or the drama gets really high, I do try and say, okay, let's take a deep breath here.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't always work, but it is one of like the tools in the tool belt that I have.
Well, how long would you say your kid's bedtime routine takes on a good night versus a bad night?
On a good night, I would say,
if there's such a thing as a good night.
Yeah. I would say a good, satisfactory, everyone's happy kind of night is probably an hour.
Well, that's not too bad.
And I start my bedtime routine pretty much starts at bath time.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say the bath is like our first foray, our first step into, okay, we're getting ready for bedtime, we're winding down, and the first step is bath. It's always been that way since they were born. And I think that's a really important thing about having a bedtime routine. It's just having like 1 or 2 or 3, maybe 3 milestones every night that you always do, no matter what. No matter if you're in a hotel, you're on vacation, wherever you are, there's these 3 things, whatever they may be, that you always do. And it just sends this signal subconsciously to your children to kind of like get into that frame of mind. It doesn't work 100% of the time, but at least you're telling yourself that you're trying. So on a good night, back to your question, on a good night, I would say about an hour. It starts at bath time. After bath, generally it's going to the bedroom, it's brushing our teeth, it's maybe a little playtime in the bedroom, quiet playtime. Mm-hmm. There's always books being read, and then it's lights out.
Now, is there a few excuses to stay up later that the kids have incorporated into their own routine?
Oh my gosh. Yes. I would say lately, because this is an ever-changing process, mm-hmm. You have 3 children, I have 2. It constantly changes. Right now we're in a phase where for some bizarre reason, my little one, Bianca, cannot go to sleep unless she has a carrot. Like literally a carrot. And then now the older one's gotten on that bandwagon. So now even though lights are out, it's like, oh, mommy, you forgot my carrot. Please, and it's the sweetest, most tender. I'm like, a carrot? Okay. So they get a little carrot, and I give in because, hey, it might actually help them. So it's better than a candy, I guess, or a cookie. So I give them that carrot, and now they've added on water to wash it down, obviously. They're just really good about adding on one more little thing. Mm-hmm. And so it's tough. It's like you have to draw the line somewhere, but it's always a delicate balance of, okay, I'll give you one more thing, but that's it. And then you kind of do have to stand your ground and say, okay, no more because I said no more. And it's a constant, negotiation.
And how old are your kids right now?
5 and 3. They both just had a birthday. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, so I know that if I woke up in the morning without any of my kids having woken up at least once in the night, I'd probably think they've been kidnapped. So how often do your kids wake up after they've gone to sleep? Or do they sleep through the night?
Well, yes, on a good night. They sleep through the night. The 5-year-old really is in a good place right now. Now that I've said that out loud, something's going to go wrong. Mm-hmm. But right now she's sleeping like awesome. Within 15 minutes, she's out. They're actually sharing a room now. We're doing this thing. They had their own rooms. Good. Now they're in the same room together because that was really helping for a while, and then it stopped helping. You know, it's always a constant it's always constantly changing. I think that's the only predictable thing is that it's always going to change. Mm-hmm. So right now, the older one is sleeping through the night great, but the little one, she's the one that's a little more curious about getting up and wandering around and finding one last glass of milk or water or story or something or other. But you know what? I would say like 3 or 4 times a week she wakes up. There's like 2 or 3 nights a week where they both sleep all through the night. And it's a miracle. Last night she did wake up. It was tough because she woke up at around 2:30. Mm-hmm. So she'd already been asleep for a good, we all had been asleep for a good while. And I went in and I think it was just like a little bad dream or something. And she asked for milk. I went and got milk. And by the time I came back with the milk, she was passed out. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, really? So then I can't go to sleep because I'm thinking, she's going to wake up like in 10 minutes saying, where's my milk? But it didn't happen. So we got, just one waking up last night was a good thing.
Yeah, my daughter, it was just a couple of nights ago. She's 6 and she fell out of her bed.
Oh my gosh.
It was probably only about 10 o'clock. So I was still awake and I heard it, but she was, kind of whimpering and crying and I helped her back up into bed. Just the saddest thing. But she has no recollection of it whatsoever. And she was almost angry that I even mentioned it. Like, how could she have fallen out of bed?
I was there. I know it didn't happen. Yes. That sounds like something my 5-year-old would do.
Well, do your kids watch the Goodnight Show then?
Sure. So, I have this sneaking suspicion that my kids think that everybody's mommy is on TV. Mm-hmm. So it's not really a big deal. Mm-hmm. They kind of are like, I don't want to see Mommy and Star. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to see Mommy and Star? Everybody wants to see Mommy and Star. But they have, I guess they're just kind of, it's so normal and in the background and their whole, I've been doing the Goodnight Show longer than they've been alive. So it's always been in the background. They've always seen it. They've always known it. They've always had little Star plush toys. They've been to the set in the studio when we've been filming. So it's bizarrely normal for them. They do get excited. They're really excited about Nina's World.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good.
Oh, yeah. Like, this is the best thing that I could have ever done. Right now, it's like I'm the coolest for Nina's World.
Well, tell me about that show. Yeah, because it is incredible. My daughter's already asking. I mean, I haven't told her we're doing this interview or anything, but she's just seen a couple episodes of the show, and she's already saying, Daddy, put it on Nina's World, which I think is great. So how long has this show been in the works? Just shy of 2 years. Animation is a really long process. Mm-hmm. And, the Goodnight Show has done really well on Sprout, and we have a really amazing fan base and audience, which is constantly growing because thankfully people are always having more kids and people are really enjoying the show. We've had a lot of support, a lot of love shown towards Nina and Star. So Sprout said, well, what else could we do with these characters? How can we take them out of the treehouse and into the real world a little bit? And we decided to have a look at what Nina would have been like if she were the age of our audience. Mm-hmm. So she's 6 years old. And, we took all the cues from the Goodnight Show. We said, well, she speaks Spanish and English. She's a Hispanic woman, Nina is. So let's have a look at what she would have been like, what neighborhood she would have grown up in as a little girl. Why does she speak both languages? Why does she know sign language? Why does she love music so much? And where do these influences come from? And the story just started to tell itself just because fortunately we have 9 years worth of the Goodnight Show to kind of explore and dig for clues. And that's really how it all came about. And just animation is a really long, beautiful but long process. And that's why it's taken so long. Yeah, well, it turned out really well. I mean, the animation on the show and the colors, I mean, just it really catches my kids' attention when they walk by and they see it on TV.
Yeah, it's vibrant, it's happy. But you know what? It's real. Like, I feel like even though it is a cartoon and the characters have all these big, beautiful eyes, and you know it's obviously not real, but there is this foundation and this basis in reality. And I think that was really one of the really important driving forces behind the show. It was to say, how can we look at these everyday, real little moments in a little girl's life and highlight them? Because, you know, as a grown-up, they may seem insignificant to us, those little moments of, I lost my favorite toy, or my best friend doesn't want to share something with me. As a grown-up, you know, we have much bigger problems to worry about. But these are really huge issues for a 6-year-old. So it's really important for us to look at it from their point of view, you know, from their perspective, and appreciate what they're going through, and try and keep it based in reality. I mean, there's a lot of room out there for a lot of shows, and there's a lot of fantasy, you know, outer space, monsters, dragons, princesses. There's room for everything. But right now, we felt like it was really important to create a show that had a foundation in reality, you know, where we could be authentic and really show what it's like to be a little girl, and show what it's like to have friendships, and to really show intergenerational relationships. You know, she's really close with her grandmother. I thought that was really special and really real. You know, we're seeing that happening a lot with our audience. A lot of grandparents tell us that they tune in to watch the Goodnight Show with their grandkids. So we wanted to respect that and highlight that.
Yeah, and the cast is actually pretty special too. Were you able to record with them, or get to meet them and hang out, or do you do that, you know, from a local studio? Or
well, actually, most of the recordings have happened in Canada, because our production facilities are up there. So luckily, I have been able to record with most of the cast. Rita Moreno is absolutely amazing. I've worked with her now on several occasions. We've done a few recording sessions together, and we've done a bunch of press together, and she is amazing. Unfortunately, I have not had the chance to meet or work with Mandy Patinkin. He obviously is a very, very busy man and could only do, you know, a certain schedule that, you know, was when he could work. So I haven't had a chance to work with him. But we do have such a great cast of kids, and we got real kids to voice all of the kid parts. And we have a really diverse cast. We have a real Chinese Mandarin speakers doing the Chinese characters. We have a real deaf boy that voices our deaf character. We have people from all over South America voicing our Hispanic characters. So we're really taking this authenticity, you know, as far as we could.
Now, are there Nina toys in the works, and is there going to be a toy mom where you might have your own toy when you go to Target or somewhere?
Yeah, and you pull the string and she says, "Go to bed." I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know. Well, we do have the star plushes. If you go onto sproutonline.com, there's stars, there's chicas. Hopefully there will be a Nina doll. That would be kind of crazy and awesome. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, kind of coming back to you as the mom again, can you share a parenting fail? I ask all the guests this question. A parenting fail that was stressful at the time, but that you're able to laugh about now?
Yeah, gosh. There's a lot of parenting fails. Oh, you know what? I have a funny one. Okay. So this is my first child was about 3 months old, and I had to go. I live in South Florida, but I had to go to Philadelphia, where Sprout's headquarters were at the time. They've moved to New York since then, but they were in Philadelphia, and I had to go for a quick session, and I decided to take my baby and my mom, and she was going to help me watch the baby while I had to do a few hours worth of work. And so I went to their offices. You know, you want to show off your cute baby, and everyone kind of wanted to see the baby and meet the baby, and she's really adorable. And mind you, it's December in Philadelphia, so it's about 10 degrees. So we're walking around the offices, and there's a circle of women, and everyone's just oohing and awing over the baby. My mom's holding the baby. the president of Sprout, the vice president of Sprout. I mean, everybody, the top level of Sprout, they're all women. They're all standing around in a circle, just oohing and awing over the baby. And I look over at my mom and I see liquid dripping from the diaper, like literally dripping on the carpet in the middle of the office, right outside of the president's office. Nobody else noticed this. And I'm like, oh my God, she just had an explosive poop. We've all been there. Well, I hadn't been there. This was my first time. So I'm like, Mom, trying to be really subtle. So maybe I can go to the bathroom and change the diaper now. Yeah, nobody look down. Everyone's like, I'm trying to distract them with something over here. And so the president says, no, Michelle, just use my office. We'll just clear off the conference table. Just use I have kids. Use my table. It's no big deal. I'm like, no, I don't think I can really do that right now. Okay, I will. And she's forcing me into her office. Please use my desk. So I had no choice but to basically undress my child. But by at that point, her entire outfit, 4 layers of clothing, completely soaked in baby poop. I mean, I'm sorry I got to put it out there, but it's pretty gross when they're, 3 months old and it's like, it's like yellow. It's not even got a real color yet. It was all over her desk, all over the clothes. I had not enough wipies in the world to clean up this mess. And I'm like, I can't throw this in her garbage can, right? So we throw this all, we go to the bathroom, we throw everything away. I had no backup clothes, none. She just had a little diaper on her butt and shoes, and it was 10 degrees outside.
Oh, no.
Massive parenting fail. Epic parenting fail with an audience.
Well, I think we can all relate to that, though.
Yeah. Well, after that, that's how you learn, though, right? That's like the other side of the coin. Like, you never leave without 2 pairs of backup clothes in your diaper bag, with the extra bag of wipies, with the extra diapers. I mean, it was miserable.
Yeah, I've sometimes got that call from daycare, too, where we've forgotten to give them an extra set of clothing and something will happen at daycare and they'll call us and say, I'm sorry, Cameron or Ava, they don't have a extra set of clothes and they need one.
That's going to be the day that it happens.
Yeah.
The day that you don't have anything there. Yeah, of course. I mean, I would say that that's pretty much my advice to anyone out there, especially a new parent, is the minute that you think you've got it figured out, be prepared for it to not work out. The minute you feel like you've got a routine, you've got things chugging along smoothly, that's going to be the day that it's all going to change and you just got to go back to the drawing board. It's all about patience and being flexible and just going with the flow.
Well, good. And that kind of segues into the last question, which is about any advice for parents when it comes to putting kids to bed.
Oh, patience. Patience. I mean, and the other thing I would say that I mentioned earlier is to have a solid 3 or 4 milestone, I call them milestones, 3 or 4 events that have to happen every single night that you can always hang your hat on and your kids will know that will always happen. And you can make a game or a song out of it. I used to do that with Gia. Every night it was comer, bañar, dormir. And I would do like this funny little singy voice and she would laugh and she would sing along with me. And it's comer is eat, bañar is to take a bath, and dormir is sleep. Like, it could be that basic. That was what we would do when she was, 18 months old and she could sing along and get along with that. And then as she got older, we would develop it a little bit more. We would, add in brushing your teeth, for example, or, but it never got beyond 4 things that it was solid. We would do every single night. We would make a song out of it. And it just gives them that reassurance and reinforcement that the end is dormir, is sleep. We always are working towards that sleep, that precious sleep. But patience, number 1. And number 2 is to have a bedtime routine. Right now, Nina's World is part of our bedtime routine. It's on at 7:00. So we watch Nina's World, then we turn it off, and we take a bath, tea, stories, and bed. That's our routine right now.
Well, that's great. Well, I really appreciate you being on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks. I love your Twitter feed. You keep me laughing all the time, so keep up the good work.
Well, thank you. That was my interview with Michele Lepe. I hope you enjoyed it and feel like you know another imperfect parent a little bit better. I'll post a link to Michele's website and the Sprout website in the show notes. You can also find more information from this episode at ParentNormalPodcast.com. Every episode of the ParentNormal Comedy Podcast is going to have an interview with an imperfect parent, so make sure you subscribe to the show. And if you want to leave a review, that's awesome too. It'll help raise the show's profile on iTunes, which will help more imperfect parents hear it. If you want to rate this show, use the search tab on your podcast app or in the iTunes store to find the ParentNormal Comedy Podcast. Click the show image, select reviews, and write your honest review. Hopefully an honest review about how much you love the show. If you didn't enjoy the show, just ignore everything I've said about reviews. But if you do leave a review, send me a message on Twitter at ParentNormal. I would love to follow you back and thank you publicly, especially if it's a good review. You can also find me on Instagram at ParentNormal and on Facebook at facebook.com/TheParentNormal. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Say, thanks for listening.
I can't really do it.
Yeah, you can. Just say thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.